Good morning. Welcome to the Higher View. I'm Dr. Laura, and I'm very excited about our guest today. Yolanda Naava is our guest. She was on with Reverend Charles before, but we've got a little different topic that I want to talk about. But for those of you who don't know Yolanda, let me tell you a little bit about her background. A little bit, there's a lot actually. So Yolanda is an Emmy Award-winning television journalist in Los Angeles, and perhaps you watched her anchoring and reporting on Channel 40 News in Sacramento. It aired from Sacramento to the Continental Divide, or perhaps you watched her on the nationally syndicated television magazine Latin Tempo, and that garnered her an Entertainer of the Year award. I told you, she's pretty amazing. Yolanda's life has been filled with accomplishments and service to empower women and children, more recently herself, as she suddenly lost sight in both eyes 11 years ago due to a rare autoimmune illness, and that went undetected and undiagnosed. Her positive attitude and her spirituality allowed her to transcend her losses and to learn adaptive techniques to continue her writing, travel, and board involvement. So today, Yolanda is going to share her process of moving from one year to the next. I don't do resolutions the way we used to, she told me. We all know how quickly we forget to take them seriously. So we hope sharing her process will encourage you to try it and to put into practice the principles we teach here at Center for Spiritual Living, Palm Desert, so that you have a fabulous new you in the new year. So we chose to call this session From Griping to Gratitude. There was a lot of griping in 2020, wasn't there? And to underscore the importance of using our words, thoughts, and actions to manifest that which we want to experience. So we are delighted to have Yolanda join us. Good morning, Yolanda.
You look Good morning, Reverend Laura. It's wonderful to be here. It's wonderful to be in a new era. Yes. I am so excited. We are moving into a new era. So it's not only a new year, 2021, but it is an entirely new era. And so we can take the opportunity of this new era and the new year to create a new, a new you. We can create our year with a fresh vision.
Exactly. And a lot of people. Yolanda, I want to say something about that though too before we get started. There are a lot of people. Half of probably people watching us are sad or upset about this new era, and they're in fear about it or they're angry about it. So we need to take that into account too. That there's a shift here where there may have been people that were really delighted last year that maybe are fearful this year. So, but I like your idea about but I like the idea about a new way of doing our intentions or whatever, because I'm like you, I do not set New Year resolutions, because I find by the if I get to February, I'm really happy that I stuck with them. So I'm really excited to hear what you've uncovered, because let me just say, everyone, this woman, besides all those things, I have never met somebody with that she is so determined. She does so much with her life. She's writing a book. She's got a new book coming out. And so anyway, Yolanda, I just wanted to share that we need to be conscious that there are people that are watching this that are fearful or upset about what may be coming in the future.
Well, fear is false evidence appearing real.
Yes.
Excuse me. And we won't go into politics. I could spend an hour on that.
I know you could. Being a newscaster, I'm sure you could.
Yeah, I could spend a lot of time on that, but we have to look at what happened on January 6th and weigh that into the whole picture. And we need to move our democratic institutions forward, which they are now shifting into the integrity of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, which frankly, in my opinion, have been let to slip and slide. So it is a new time. It's a new year. It's a new, leadership. And but for the transitioning, I think what's really important, I have been praying nonstop for the last 5 years, but especially in these last months. And I find that the process that I learned, it was just years ago, I learned a wonderful process that I discovered came from the Japanese culture. And that was when you end the year, you pay your bills, you clean house, you empty drawers, you really refresh, and you heal any breaches that exist, any discomfort, any lack of forgiveness. And I thought those three principles were really wonderful, a way to really reframe things.
Absolutely. Get rid of the old crud and stuff that you haven't used this whole year that you're lugging around, and start the new year anew, right? Start it anew with a fresh.
And then the other process that I discovered just in recent years. I've discovered a lot of recent years, and this was a process that said, okay, forget the resolutions, because as we say, we tend to let those go very quickly. You say, I'm going to lose weight or go to the gym or whatever it is. But this process is it's a process of deepening, and it's a process of altering awareness of ourselves, and it's a process of using tools that are not only science of mind, but have gone back to ancient times, to Vedanta and Buddhism and Sufi and lots of ancient philosophies. And the idea is that you look back at the year. And when I looked back a couple of years ago at the previous year, I wasn't feeling like I had accomplished much. I still hadn't finished my book, and there were loose ends and a lot of things were going on. But when I went back and I keep a daily morning pages that I do as a spiritual practice, Julie Cameron's process. And I also keep a calendar, a Word document. I don't use the Outlook calendar. I keep a Word document calendar for each month of the year. And I went back and I kind of flipped through that, in the computer, and I looked at what I had done and where I had been and the talks I had given and the people I had seen and met. And I saw accomplishments that I didn't acknowledge at the end of the year, going into the new year. I wasn't acknowledging those things for myself. And the recommendation in this process was to go back and look at your year and acknowledge and give yourself a pat on the back for those things which were accomplishments, that were forward movement in your life and in your spiritual life. We're not talking always about material stuff. Did I buy a new car? Did I get a new house, or whatever? It's about this inner process, and really the real work has to be, instead of looking so much outward, it's to look inward. How do we change ourselves? How do we improve ourselves?
Right. And I like that, because don't we tend, at least I can only speak for myself, a lot of times at the end of the year too, we kind of look at, where did I fall short? Instead of, we look at, oh, this happened or that didn't happen. Oh God, like I said at the beginning, oh, thank God 2020 is over. But really your process, what you're talking about is, no, there were great things that happened to us during 2020. There were things that we accomplished, and you know what? And we're still here living and breathing, right, Yolanda?
Right. That's, one of the things, we talk about it, we gripe too much. That's what we call it, from griping to gratitude, because we don't see the gifts in everyday life. We are alive. It is a beautiful day outside. There is, vaccines. I don't know if they're out here yet, but I know yesterday they were signing up in Los Angeles, and through Dodger Stadium and the county sites where people are going to get the vaccine. So I think it should be doing the similar thing here very soon. It's I love this. I love looking back in order to look forward. In that particular year that I started this process, and it was just a couple of years ago, I did for the first time, it was, sort of a letter. You know how you get Christmas letters.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, I said, I did this process and I want to share it with you. And these are some of the things that I discovered I had done and accomplished. And in this last year, and I think I've told you this, before privately, but I used the COVID quarantine as an opportunity. I used it as a writer's retreat to complete my book, which a long story, and I won't go there, but the wrong version had been set in the previous year. And so I was reworking it myself without an assistant. And what I did is I went into writer's retreat. So every morning I got up with a purpose. And one of the things that I find that we often don't do, and maybe that was part of the big problem last year, and it's ongoing until this is over, with the COVID. But it's to have a purpose. It's not to be missing what you don't have, but look at what you do have. I mean, so many people haven't had food, they haven't had jobs, they haven't had income, they haven't had anything. And some of them have come up with very creative things. The woman who has, she's a pedicurist and a manicurist and a massage therapist, she started making masks. And I bought a big package from her, and they're fabulous. There are different colors and different fabrics. There's even a black satin one, if you want to dress up and put on a black satin mask. And they're really well made. Right. And so she did that as a creative thing because she had to generate income. And she's a cancer survivor, so she had to be very careful, and she gets tests all the time, and her doctor's really, taking very good care of her that way. But people came up with things. Jose Andres, the restaurateur who owns 27 restaurants, responded. He had responded previously to food shortage crisis and the hurricane in Puerto Rico, and he had also done things out in other countries previous to the COVID. But he took the opportunity to create a network of creating meals for people for free. And so he began, I think he said he's delivered over it's a 3-figure million, maybe 30 million meals. I don't know, but gazillions of meals. Wow. And to people at no cost. And he raised the money to give it away. He helped at the hurricane because our government wasn't responding to Puerto Rico during the hurricane. He took food there. He took food to the ships that were quarantined offshore when they couldn't land when the COVID first hit. And he took food to them. He became very creative. So people have responded. Some people have responded with great creativity to a horrible crisis that's caused, over 400,000 deaths so far. So there is opportunity even in the midst of crisis. And that's what we need to look at instead of griping about what we don't have. I never found any shortage, any lack during this time. And I just walk across the street to the market. At first, people were bringing me food because everybody was frightened for me and everybody. And I walked across until the fall. And now I get a ride across, and then I get picked up with my groceries. And I do all the masking, I wear the gloves, I wash the food, I wash my body from head to toe, put the clothes in the laundry. I do all the things that you're supposed to do to be sure that you're healthy and safe. I've avoided groups. I haven't socialized. I haven't seen my children for over a year. We talk on the phone. We didn't celebrate holiday together. And I've really kept to the, pretty strict, protocols, one person at a distance, masked, fresh air, all of that. So it was an opportunity for me. And the Chinese word, I think somebody the other day was talking about this on one of the programs, I don't remember which one, that crisis in Chinese is the word for opportunity.
Yes. Yes. And so, so are you going to one person's crisis is another person, like you said, an opportunity. There are so many people. Yeah, the lady that does my nails, they're making, they're Vietnamese, so they're making pho, whatever, they deliver it, to my house for me. And very inexpensive and delicious and fresh. And she's very health conscious, so it's very all organic and it's delicious, and that helps her, and I get the benefit of it. It's very inexpensive. So yes, there are so many people. Look at all the people that are delivering things now too, helping with that for people that can't get out. And so Yolanda, and my hat's off to you too, with you didn't take your, well, I don't know what immediately happened, but what happened to you when you first became blind. Oh, somebody's asking, can Yolanda speak to how she dealt with her blindness in the beginning? And I think that was just exactly, oh, great minds think alike, magnificent.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. There's no original thought, really. I'm happy to do that. I it's funny because I didn't realize, one day I didn't have sight in one eye. That was in July of 2009. It was right after 4th of July, I remember. And so I go to the doctor and, I find out that there's a problem. And so, okay. And so I adapt one eye. Okay. Hey, I can read magazines. I can look out the window and see my beautiful view. I don't feel real energetic. And, I feel a little lethargic, but, hey, I can see, I can read, I can, I can still do things, and I can move around my house easily and go outside. And then less than a month later, I wake up in the morning and I was blind.
Oh,
It's
wow.
all in my book, and there's but it's I couldn't see, and so I got up and I knew how to get from my bedroom. I didn't have a cane or any training at that time. Obviously, I was used to being sighted, and I had to walk from my bedroom down a step across. There was a cabinet on my left, so I felt my way across that cabinet. I had to step up onto the upper living room. I had to, navigate my way, through the living room with the chairs and the sofa and the piano. And I used the piano as a guide to lead me over to the doorway to the dining room. And then I used a wainscoting to get into the kitchen. And I sat down at my kitchen table, which was my command central. It was my desk. I used my phone calls. I did my work there. And same table I have in front of me now, except it's smaller. I took a leaf out, and I announced the problem, and we had a young woman staying with us, who not a young woman, she was a mature woman, who was brought 2 horses and 2 cats and a piano and her guitar, and she came over to the house. What's the matter? What's going on? Because my husband at the time called her. We need your help. It was interesting because I had so much to do. I was on a board of directors for a new cultural organization in Los Angeles, and I had to make phone calls. I had to raise money. I had to attend meetings. And that was really a major driving force. And so I kind of just put the blindness aside. What can I do? I need to learn how to read, make the calls, and do all these things. How do I pay my bills? Because I did all the household accounting. And so Julie started helping me do the checks, and I could sign them, and I could still sign my name. And but I was the conversations that I had with her was, you're not going to be a blind woman. You're going to be a woman who happens to be blind. And that, and we worked together so that I could look people in the eye and go to meetings. And I'm very independent. She noticed that. She said, you were a go-getter, and I saw that. So I knew that I could reinforce who you are. And I continued to travel to Los Angeles blind, go to the meetings blind. I must have looked like hell warmed over. And I had a patch on one eye because one eye, anyway, but I didn't acknowledge that there was anything wrong.
I love
And
it.
I never thought of myself as being blind. It was something. And then when I finally got to the hospital, it wasn't until the middle and third week of August, and this was July 4th around, when it started going, at the beginning of August when I went totally blind. I got to Los Angeles, and it was a series of just wonderful friends and wonderful synchronicity. And I get to the hospital, we do all the things. I had my children, people who supported everything. But when my girlfriend saw me in bed when I first got to LA before I got the diagnosis, I could hear in her voice that she was scared to death. And I said, "Oh, Kathy, don't overreact. You always overreact. I'm fine. I'm fine." And my spirit was strong, Laura. My spirit was strong. I wasn't in my body. I wasn't acknowledging, and she says, "You lost 40 pounds. You were as white as the sheet you were, the sheet in the bed, the clothes that you were wearing in bed." She said, "You look like you're going to die any minute." So again, spirit carried me
Right.
through. I used my spiritual tools in the hospital. I was raised as a Christian Scientist. I've been involved in science of mind since I was in my 30s. I did training with Reverend Bill in Los Angeles at Founders Church, and I use those tools. I prayed constantly. I did spiritual affirmations. I did the scientific statement of being. There's no life, truth, intelligence, or substance and matter. All is infinite mind. It's infinite manifestation. For God is all and all. And I sang to myself poetry and songs that my mother used to sing me when I wasn't feeling well as a child. And so it was I was not I wasn't attached to the illness. I wasn't the diagnosis.
Oh,
And
that's so powerful, Yolanda. You prayed, but you didn't get your sight back. That wasn't it. That wasn't really, I don't think that was your prayer. Your prayer, you were just in gratitude, it sounds like. And just, you know what? That my sight does not define who I am. And you defined who you are, and you still define who you are, which is this amazing woman that just goes, goes, goes. What is mine to do? That's what it feels like every day.
well, that is. And I even in my, even in all of this, I met the love of my life blind. I've dated blind. I've had 3 marriage proposals blind. I wasn't interested in marrying him, but I did meet the love of my life, and he's still the love of my life, although we're in hiatus. But it's just interesting how too many people, and the same thing with this COVID thing. Let's look at the COVID thing again.
Okay.
That people are are thinking that's life. It's not life. It's an experience. We are moving through it. We will make it. Many of us will make it. Some of us will not. But some of us aren't going to make it anyway. And that sounds abrupt, but this again is an opportunity. And the beauty for me of this past year, I finished my manuscript. I turned it in July. The book is coming out in March, I believe, for the publisher. And I held myself even in the COVID. I did what I could. I did some travel. I've done some travel to Los Angeles to take care of a haircut and doctors and friends, and until it really got heavy this past fall, and then I stopped. But the and I did it one-on-one, and all very protective. One time I went in and I stayed in a hotel near the 2 doctors I had to see, and I went and did that. I got back, went to the hotel and came back home, so I didn't even stay with friends that time. So but the absence, for example, of somebody that you love, that you want to be with, but because of work and because of this quarantine and everything else is not going to happen. And I still feel that love and that presence, because love isn't about having that person take you to the grocery store or be next to you all the time or to fill a need. It is love. It's an outpouring that you feel. And that's the same love. And I mean, I feel so much love for so many people. I take my walk across to the market largely and go there because I want to engage with these young people. They're high school and college students that, that work in the grocery stores. And I coach them, Laura. I
Oh,
talk to them. Yeah. That's
yeah.
my mission, is to hang out on the streets and and engage with
Little
strangers.
streetwalker, Yolanda.
I'm not a street walker, but when I travel, I coach people that I'm sitting next to, especially if I sit next to somebody young, and I get coached. I ran into a Jungian psychologist. She was training to be a Jungian therapist, and she gave me some very wise advice to things I should look at as a Jungian trained person. And so I get wisdom from people, and I give wisdom because I love I just love to to draw people out, and I love to see people be empowered. That's something I've always done, and it's always been that service that has provided me with my opportunities, not getting things. And I've never really focused on that. I've never been focused on being wealthy and all of that. I've been exposed to tremendous wealth. I can't tell you, Architectural Digest wealth. And but it's it's life is about the vision. It's about having our own purpose. It's about contributing to the world. When you're in that space, that is what becomes important. And so the blindness is actually, it's become my avatar for having a more joyous and creative life.
Right. And I feel that gratitude. We just gratitude for everything, things that we take for granted. You're drinking that great cup of coffee. There are people that don't even have water. We take so many things, and um, I just think that gratitude, instead of focusing on what we think we don't have, focus on all the gifts we do have. And I think that is a really great thing to do.
Well, the
And
other
not,
thing is, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, because once we start complaining about things, don't you notice it's kind of like an avalanche?
Well, you
It
get more,
just
you get what you give attention to.
Mhm. Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
an affirmation of all the bad stuff. And I during the beginning of COVID, I turned off the news, and I'm an addict. I love Rachel Maddow and Lawrence, and I turned it off because it was all COVID. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I don't need to hear anymore.
You don't need to hear how many people died today and how many new cases.
I don't need that, and it plants a lot of fear. We've been living in a fear-based culture, and we really need to move out of that. And we need to have truth, not lies. And the so I stopped until prior to the November election, about a month before I started listening, because it's political news. And I watched the two what do you call it? The speeches and all that, the conventions, virtual conventions, and I got back in and engaged again. But we need to set our own agenda, and we need to look at not just again, moving into the new year. You look at the previous year and you affirm what is good, and you can see what wasn't and what you need to change, and then we can set our thoughts on the new year and look at how we want to be creative in that new year and what we want to do in the new year. Not, if you want to lose weight, don't eat white, okay? Don't eat white food. You can have cauliflower, all right? Don't eat.
That's the only white food we can have.
Yes. And if you eat, if you want to have pasta, eat it gluten-free. But don't eat a lot of it. Don't eat a lot of bread. Don't eat bread. For the first 30 days, don't eat bread, and you'll be surprised what happens. Your body just starts kicking in. If you want to feel better, get off your backside and exercise. Take a walk every day. I walk for 30 or 40 minutes every day, back and forth. I have a little green belt next to my front patio, and I can walk safely on one side of the street. I don't cross the street there. and I just walk back and forth 30 or 40 minutes every day. Or I do yoga, and I do both in a day. I usually do yoga in the morning, and then I take a walk later in the afternoon because it's been so cold in the morning. I don't like to go out when it's 45 or 55 degrees. And you got to move. If you don't move, you're not going to be able to move.
That's right.
First thing we have to do is eat right and balance our body weight and our health. And then we have to move. We have to exercise.
Right.
And we have to have something outside of ourselves to focus on, other than a husband. Okay. It's
other than the news.
to make us happy. Okay. That's not going to make you happy.
No, it's interesting. People always, when they come to a practitioner, it's about they want somebody in their life. And of course, what we know is you have to be that person. I mean, you have to work, you have to be happy with yourself and love yourself so much that that's just an added, you can share who you are, but that's how you attract people, by being that positive attitude. Somebody wants to know, what's the name of your new book going to be? What is it?
The new book is Through the Dark, and I'll be sending out an announcement, so we'll all know when that's happening here. And it's the story. It really turned out well, because, like I say, I rewrote the whole thing practically this past year, and I'm happy with how it turned out. It's probably a 2-night read.
Right.
And it moves, and it goes through the transitions that I've gone through, the awareness of really developing a new spiritual vision,
Right.
developing understanding. And I would recommend this for everybody that's listening. If you don't have a spiritual practice, develop one. Start meditating, start reading inspirational poetry or readings. I'm just rereading again The Path to Love by Deepak Chopra. I promise you read that book. It's just beautiful. There's so much in it that we can learn from, and especially about relationship, about love, because we have to be the love that we want to receive. Just like you said, we have to be, I always hold the affirmation for myself: I love and am loved. And you know what? I am. Everybody loves me.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, and I know with COVID, people are because of the isolation, they're feeling, well, how can I meet somebody? That's such a thing. But you know what? To me, I look at it. This is a really great way with the FaceTime, the Zoom, to really start just having conversations, to really get to know a person on that level, and really develop a friendship, a really strong friendship first. And but so that's it, Yolanda. So we look back on 2020, and so we should keep our focus on what were the gifts of 2020. What do I need to discard from 2020 that maybe was holding me back from my joy, from that poor me? And and don't you feel, and I know this is who you are, just from what you said at the very beginning, you're about helping others constantly. And don't we get such joy from that when we get out of ourselves and we really see the gift that we get is seeing the joy, or knowing we've impacted somebody else's life, and it's not because you want a pat on the back or anything. It's just from the joy that fills your heart for knowing that you helped another being. And that's really what we're all here for. And that's my vision for 2021. I know is our oneness as a nation, our oneness in our own community, our oneness in our families. That's the vision. And what we know is that what we put out into the universe with that true, genuine energy of love, it has to manifest. It has to manifest.
It does. I have to tell you something. When I was in my 20s, I was just a baby. I was right out of graduate school. And I was a counselor for high school dropouts in the War on Poverty. That was a neighborhood youth corps program. And I ended up having a caseload of mainly 25 young girls that most of them had dropped out of school in the middle of the 10th grade because they were pregnant. So I took it upon myself to teach them about birth control, number one.
Good start.
And my mother was a birth control advocate. Really funny. I mean, she would see a woman. She worked in the garment district downtown LA, and she would see a lady with 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 in the pot, and she'd say, senora, you don't have to get pregnant every time you have sex. God love my mother. She was so wise, and my mother was great. Well, I picked that up from her. And so I was out of the community, advocating, talking to these girls about, hey, you shouldn't be doing this in the first place. You're 16 or 15 or whatever. But some of it is predatory males, and that's something that we haven't looked at. These are men. I think the average age when I researched it is about 23 male who are impregnating these young girls as young as 12, 14, 15. And so there's something that we have to look at there. And sometimes it's Uncle so-and-so in the house or grandpa.
You hear a lot of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I write about that in my loyalty chapter. And I say, the loyalty shouldn't be to grandpa or whoever the family member is who's abusing children in the household, but it should be to the highest and greatest good. And our loyalty has to be to God, not to a party, not to a detergent, not to grandpa or a family member, but to the higher or greatest good. So what are the higher good we have to look at and towards and become? It's one of the processes is that I suggested a spiritual practice. Even every morning, if you read, from the Bible, I haven't been somebody who's done that regularly, but my daughter is in Science of the Mind, and now she's reading the Bible. And so she's sending me from the New World Bible edition, which is very easy to read. It's not as archaic a language as King James, which is what I grew up with. And I still love the King James, but it's very readable. And so she's sending me those passages and I'm reading them. You know what? They've been absolutely perfect for each day in the last, since she's been sending it to me this year. And I would recommend looking at it and then seeing how you interpret it, because many things in the Bible have been misinterpreted and interpreted in a way that has programmed a lot of people to not even come close to what the teachings of Jesus Christ were, or to draw from the Old Testament. There's some fabulous stuff in the Old Testament, in Psalms and Isaiah and elsewhere, that is very uplifting. And Jesus was a Jew after all. So, we have to look at what the Old Testament says. In the beginning, there was a word and the word was God, and it was all good. And so that's the world that's been created for us. So why aren't we living that world instead of this fear-based, surround that we have, with accusations going back and forth about,
who did what to who and what illegal and so forth.
It's growth. Okay, so we could look at that. We could look at any of the New Thought teachers, Chopra, Marianne Williamson. I mean, all of these people that we've been reading at Science of Mind classes. Troward is amazing. It's tough stuff. Troward is hard reading. I mean, that's
yeah. His paragraphs go on for pages, or his sentence.
but I think the idea of taking in spirit, taking in positive ideas, and again to do something for somebody else, to not just be me, and not be trying to change somebody else. You got to change yourself. And if you don't like what you see. I remember one of the classes I was in with Reverend Joe, one of the ladies said, what do you do if your husband is chaotic and creates a lot of disorder in the house? And I said, put him in assisted living. And then there was a laugh, and then there was a gasp, but right. It was funny, but you can't change that. Why did you allow that for the last 30 years, And so we have to,
till death do us part, Yolanda. Well, and going back to the Bible and how wonderful it is, and this is something I say all the time. I feel like man has, it says that we are made in the image and likeness of God, but what we've done is made God into our image and likeness, what suits us, and made God judgmental and punishing, and so what a lot of us as humans are very judgmental and write people off and so forth. And we need to, in the book study that I'm doing, the one with Neil Donald Walsh right now, he talks about, instead of going into judgment, we need to go into understanding, and really understanding why people feel the way they do or see things the way they do, instead of trying to judge them and then write them off, or I'm right and you're wrong. And if we just start getting that dialogue, maybe that should be one of our intentions for 2021. Yeah.
Listen, and we really need to focus on truth.
Yes.
Truth, because there is a lot of nonsense out there.
Yolanda, did you do fake news when you were a newscaster?
Did I what?
Did you do fake news when you were a news?
We didn't do fake news then. When I started out, it was about integrity. We were supposed to keep our own opinions out of the picture. We were to present the sides of the story that were out there in the field, and bring those, and bring the like if there was let's say there's a labor union dispute, to present, the case all the way around. I would, in my mind, resolve the problem. Okay. But I couldn't do that on air.
Right.
I wanted to solve the problem. I'm a problem solver. And I presented the sides of the story, and you present the information and allow the public to make their, determine how they see it, what they, how they feel about it. That's all changed. And you have all of this, opinion, and they're not connecting the dots.
Yeah.
There's
well,
history,
right. Well, I know when I grew up, we had news like 2 or 3 times a day, like the 6 o'clock news, 11 o'clock news, and maybe there was something during the day, but I was in school or working, so I never saw that. And they really, Walter Cronkite, they would just, like you said, just state what happened, and that was it. But now with the 24-hour cycle, they got to fill their time. So they, so yeah, it's a different world on that. And so yeah, we need that integrity, just to report what's going on and not putting our emotions behind it. And I know that's got to be hard. And was that hard for you as a newscaster?
Well, to see it, yes. I not because I haven't been in it in recent years. I haven't been doing news since 2000. And so I did a couple of shows when I was in New Mexico working for Governor Richardson. I did a couple of public affairs show. I did reporting on the Capitol, what went on in the Capitol, and then I did an interactive show with our leaders, our governmental and other leaders, and we had a Q&A coming in from the field. I did that. It was a television talk-in show, our call-in show on public television. Both were with public television there in New Mexico. And but I haven't been engaged in the business since 1991. Well, no, I did a show at the end of 99. That's how I wrote my first book, It's All in the Frijoles. Was I did a show in the evening. I didn't have to go to work until the evening, and then I had to study and prepare. But I just did 1 hour of newscasts, and I came home and went back to work on the book. Right. But this is going to change. We're going to have proper White House press conferences. Business will not be conducted by tweet, and that's going to be a big help because we need
the social media has really, not even just wanting to put this on President Trump or anything. It's just the social media, the tweeting that people do. There's already stuff going out about President Biden and Kamala and, people. And we weren't even 24 hours into it. And so anyway, so we, if we could all just start focusing on the good. Okay, so we've got 15 minutes left. So I kind of want us to wrap up this session. You're going to be back next week. But so for 2020, just right, the focus is look at the things you're grateful for and kind of release that which is not serving you to be in your joy. would you
The
say?
idea is joy, and the truth of the matter, and I really do recommend The Path to Love by Chopra. It's a very beautiful book, and it's a good way to work your way into the new year, along with the other teachers. Neil Donald Walsh is wonderful. I talk to God all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always talking to God throughout the day, and I can remember it. I've been doing this for decades. I know more intensely now because there's a lot of work to be done, spiritually, and so I'm really working the principles, and it's interesting because the manifestations are just incredible, and when you're in purpose and on purpose, the universe guides and protects and empowers you, and it's quite beautiful, and the joy. It's when I say, the blindness has become the avatar for a more joyous and creative life. I just feel so much boundless joy. I can meditate and I just, lighten up, and I can walk and I hear the birds singing and I can feel the sun on my body or the breeze, blowing by me, or the briskness if it's a cooler day. It's all to be enjoyed, and I'm so grateful for all of it, and I'm grateful for life, and I don't think I felt that way decades ago when I had
Mm-hmm.
everything in the world. You say everything,
Right.
and uh, and the it's a true sense of joy that comes from a connection with God, Spirit, Charlie, whatever you want to call her, and well, God is Father, Mother. God is not a bearded man in the sky. I
Absolutely.
just made the comment about, not making God in man's image. Reverend
Well, woman's image.
say that. Bill Hornaday used to say that with all your getting understanding, and we tend to create God in man's image instead of man in God's image. And so, what are those qualities of spirit we want to draw from? Their beauty, their intelligence, their kindness, their love, their uh, harmony, peace, all of these things, joy, and when we focus on those qualities and bring them into our life. And I would also recommend looking at my book. It's called The Free Voice, because that's the spiritual practice. If you develop the virtues, there are 14, and we I'm going to start working through the virtues myself again, because we constantly need to be developing ourselves in terms of self mastery, and there are classes at the Center for Spiritual Living on self mastery. There are also other vehicles as well that we can use in combination with, and in addition to. And the more we do, it's just soaking it all in so that we can alter our poor, pitiful human selves and raise ourselves to a higher level of awareness and love and being and joy and contribution, and to become unselfish and to become forgiving. And it's hard. I remember when I first started at the center in 2012, Reverend Joe talking about, not gossiping, about forgiveness. And a lot of the songs that we sing, that Daniel Naava, and I love his
Oh, I
music.
love Daniel. Yeah.
Amazing.
He's
I
such a
have one of his stories in my not songs in the book. He's an angel. He's just an angel on earth. And the if you I've always sat there with those songs, and I didn't just listen to them always that nice music. I was in them. I was holding those as spiritual affirmations for myself. Uh, like get ready, my soul. Get ready, my soul.
Oh, I know.
For yeah.
We've had congregants that have healed from like cancer just by sitting in that music and just letting it fill them and be one with it. And what you were talking about, so I don't do New Year's resolutions myself, but I like to pick a word for the new year. And it's so funny you said, because my word for this year is self-mastery. That's what I'm focusing on, is self-mastery. And so my book study that I'm doing on Tuesdays, it's, I would suggest when your book comes out, maybe it's something you want to do. I like to do book studies where we actually read the book together.
Yes, I like your class that way. Yes.
Because that way we hear it and we feel it, and then we discuss it, and it goes very deep, and things that you might not agree with or question, as a group we talk. And if and it is so bonding to be together, to share the experience of a book versus reading it and then coming back and talking. Something's lost there for me anyway.
Well, I have to tell you that my book, It's All in the Free Hole, is my first book, which came out originally in 2000. It's still more relevant today than, than it was then. I've listened to it audibly because it's available now for people who are sight impaired or physically handicapped, which means a lot of our congregation might not be able to listen comfortably or to see it as well because they're not seeing as clearly. They might have macular degeneration or whatever they have, but they could get the talking book machine from the Braille Institute. Here we have one in Coachella Valley, and elsewhere you could get it through the Talking
Audible.
Public
I
Library.
listen to books on Audible too. I love to do that. Audible's really great too. I love to do that when I'm driving, to listen to something inspirational instead of putting the news on, having something like that. There's so many ways to fill ourselves, to remind us of the truth of who we truly are. So Yolanda, we're almost done. So what are we going to focus on next week, do you think?
Well, we're going to focus on intention.
Okay.
We're going to focus on intention. And I love that because it's chapter 10 in my book. And it's a great story of manifesting and about the power of intention and how we can use intention in our life. But I want to say something just, to wrap up here. We had an amazing, beautiful inaugural service yesterday. And my friend in New Mexico was telling me that it snowed there and there were icicles in the trees. And that when she woke up the morning of the inauguration, the icicles were sparkling in the sunlight like millions of diamonds. She said it was just so magical. And she was telling me that the flags, there must have been angels present because the flags were blowing in the breeze gently in DC. And our flags were proud and they were flying, and they were being carried by the wind. This is a new era. And I promise everybody, don't be afraid. We're not communists and we're not anarchists. If you're a Democrat, that is all projection of it's projection. And we're not to be feared. What is to be feared is and avoided is hatred and violence. And that is antithetical to the way that we do things in this country. But I love the poem that our young poet laureate shared with the public. And I'd like to leave the audience with the last two lines, which is, let us be brave enough to see the light. Let us be brave enough to be the light. And this is something I fundamentally believe because we are creations of an infinite, loving, all-knowing, all-wise God. And we are made in her image and likeness. And so we can and must share the light that is who we really are when we tap into that divine source, knowing that it is who we are and that we are the light in the world. We are God's hands and feet in the world. And we have to do our part and to what is ours to do to make this a more loving and peaceful and prosperous place for everyone, just like our mission statement states.
Absolutely. In Neil's book, The God Solution, he talks about the fact, and this is what we really, we are those aspects of God. We are like, if we're waiting for God to come down on a cloud to save us, we're the ones that have to save us.
Yeah.
And God helps us by our spirit, divine energy, intelligence, whatever you want to call it. We are those instruments. So, spirit, God didn't get us into this mess, this COVID or whatever. We humans have done this all to ourselves. And we humans have the power to create that world that works for everybody. And that's what we need to envision and strive for. What can I do today to make a difference, make this world a better world.
Absolutely.
And that's why I pick self-mastery, because I have to master those principles myself. What am I talking about? What am I thinking? How am I looking at the world? It's a new year. It's a new us. And we can and we will make a difference. Each and every one of us, when we talk to each other with love and we see that whoever, I'm thinking about doing maybe in a while my Ho'oponopono class during the higher view, because it's all about taking self-responsibility for everything. What did I do to help create this? What is my part? Please forgive me if I've in any way helped in creating and bringing this to my attention to let me know there's work here to be done on myself. And so, this is, I love that poem, and I love what she said. And, our youth, I do kind of feel, I really have a lot of empathy with parents that are having to work from home with COVID and have little children that they're having to deal with and teach. And it's a time where we're all having to make adjustments in different ways, and it can be exhausting sometimes. But I'm just thinking, my children are with me this week because they need help with their babysitting situation, and their babies are there, and I'm like, I don't know how you do this. I don't know how they've got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old and crawling around, and one wants to be breastfed and the other one, and she's on the computer doing her job. I
Well, you have to have a schedule for breastfeeding, more or less. Although you have to also respond. I breastfed both of my babies I breastfed my son for 2 years until he started unbuttoning my blouse, and my husband said, "I think it's time to stop you." And I breastfed Danielle for a year, and I was working in 2 political campaigns, walking precincts, so I took an antihistamine for a cold, and I dried up. But I breastfed. I did all that. I stayed home for 2 years with each of the kids. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I've got an amazing daughter-in-law. So I just want to remind you that Yolanda will be back next week. We're going to continue this dialogue. And then also there's a button here that you can donate. There's a link here on this page. You can donate to PayPal. You can call the center to make a donation. Just, this does cost us money to put on these shows with our wonderful tech people that help us, and still doing things at the center. So we really appreciate the support. And Yolanda, I so appreciate you doing that. And if any of you have any questions that you would like to submit for next week to talk about on setting intentions, how do you do that, or please, I'll give you my easy email address, which is REVL Shack, like Shackleford, at AOL.com. You can send any questions there, and I'd be happy to give them to Yolanda next week when we meet again. And Yolanda, I so appreciate this, and I appreciate everybody who joined us. Today is a new day. No matter where you are in the world or what's going on, just know, set your intentions for today to experience life, to think of all the things you have to be grateful for, because what you appreciate, that's what the word appreciation means. It grows more, and you will attract to yourself more good in your life, more peace in your life, more joy in your life. There are no victims in science of mind. We know that we are the creators, and know that you are the creator. It's your consciousness. It's what you focus on. It's the joy you bring in the world is the joy that you will feel in return. So until next week, when Yolanda comes back, I'm so looking forward to next week's talk. And I'm Dr. Laura. And remember, if you have any questions, RevL Shack at AOL. And if you want to join my book study, write to me and I'll send you a link for next week, Tuesdays at 4:30. All right, everyone, have a wonderful, wonderful, blessed week filled with joy and gratitude. Till next Thursday. Bye-bye.